My name is Jason Miller. I'm 33 years old, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I work in IT. I pay my bills on time. I've never been the life of the party, but I've always been steady, responsible, the kind of guy you build a future with. At least, that's what I thought. A few months ago, I was engaged. I had a fiancé I believed was my partner for life. We had the date set, the venue booked, the invitations printed. I thought I was weeks away from standing at the altar, saying vows that would last a lifetime. And then, with one casual request, everything began to crack. She told me she wanted one last wild weekend in Las Vegas with her friends before the wedding. At first, I laughed. I thought she was joking. But she was serious. She called it harmless. Just a girl's trip. She insisted she needed to blow off steam before settling down. I didn't like the sound of it, but I didn't want to be controlling. I wanted to trust her. So I nodded, forced a smile, and said, "Have fun." That Friday afternoon, she packed her bags, kissed me on the cheek, and promised to call when she landed. I watched her car disappear down the street and told myself not to worry. After all, people take trips before weddings all the time. What could possibly happen? Hours passed. My phone buzzed with a short text. Landed. Love you. Then silence. No calls, no updates. I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling, telling myself she was busy, that Vegas was loud, that she was just caught up in the fun. And then it happened. My phone lit up, and a tiny blue dot appeared on the screen. Months earlier, we had shared our locations for safety. Neither of us thought much of it, but she forgot to turn it off. And now, sitting alone in my living room, I could see every single move she made. At first, I thought nothing of it. The pin showed the airport, then a hotel. Normal enough. But as the night went on, the map kept moving, from one club to another, from a strip bar to a penthouse suite, from a fancy restaurant to a casino at 3 a.m. My eyes traced every stop, every detour, every lie hidden in plain sight. My chest tightened with every refresh. My hands shook. The woman I thought I knew, the one I planned to marry, was living an entirely different life, and she had no idea I was watching it unfold in real time. I wish I could say I called her, that I demanded answers, that I shouted into the phone, but I didn't. I just stared at the screen, numb, as the truth revealed itself one pin at a time, because the cruelest part of betrayal isn't the moment it happens. It's the moment you realize they never thought you'd find out. And she had no idea her last wild weekend had just become her last with me. I wasn't the kind of guy who ever thought I'd end up in a story like this. My life had always been steady, maybe even boring to some people. I grew up in a middle-class family, the kind where your dad works overtime and your mom stretches every dollar to make sure the kids never go without. We didn't have much, but what we did have was honesty. If my parents taught me anything, it was that loyalty and commitment were non-negotiable. I carried that with me into adulthood. I worked hard, built a career in IT, and even though I was never the flashiest guy in the room, I took pride in being dependable. I wasn't the one chasing wild nights out or reckless adventures. I was the one people called when they needed help moving furniture, when their car broke down, when they needed someone they could rely on. And then I met Emma. We met at a friend's birthday party 4 years ago. I remember walking in, already planning to leave early, when I saw her across the room. She was vibrant, laughing in a way that made everyone around her lean in. She had this spark, this confidence that drew people like a magnet. I don't know how, but somehow she noticed me, the quiet guy in the corner, and instead of ignoring me, she walked over, introduced herself, and within minutes, we were talking like old friends. That night, she teased me for being too serious. I teased her for being too bold. By the end of the evening, she gave me her number with a smile that I still remember vividly. "You need someone to loosen you up," she said. And for a long time, I believed she was right. Our relationship moved fast. Within months, we were spending every weekend together. She loved planning spontaneous trips, and I loved being the one who made sure the bills were paid and the bags were packed. We balanced each other out. Or at least, that's how I saw it. She brought excitement. I brought stability. Together, we made sense. When I proposed 2 years in, it felt like the natural next step. I saved up for a ring that I thought she'd love, took her to the restaurant where we'd had our first real date, and asked her to marry me. She cried, said yes, and for a moment, I thought I had everything I'd ever wanted. The months that followed were a blur of wedding planning. Venues, flowers, guest lists, deposits. She threw herself into it with the same energy she did everything else, while I quietly handled the financial side, making sure deadlines were met, vendors were paid, and nothing slipped through the cracks. I thought we were building a future together, brick by brick. But looking back, there were signs I ignored. Emma was always more social than me, but after we got engaged, her nights out with friends seemed to grow more frequent. She'd tell me it was just the girls, that they were celebrating milestones or letting off steam. Sometimes she'd come home late, brushing off my questions with a laugh. "Don't worry so much, Jason," she'd say, planting a quick kiss on my cheek before disappearing into the bedroom. Her phone habits changed too. At first, she'd leave it on the counter, unlocked while she showered, but slowly it became glued to her side, face down at dinner. Notifications silenced, quick swipes of her finger when I happened to glance over. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone values privacy, right? I trusted her. I didn't want to be the jealous fiancé. The truth is, I wanted so badly to believe in her, to believe that she loved me the way I loved her. We were planning a wedding, talking about buying a house, even discussing kids someday. Why would I question that? Why would I look for cracks in something I had built my entire life around? And maybe that's why her request about Vegas hit me the way it did. It was about a month before the wedding. We were sitting on the couch, scrolling through Pinterest boards of table settings, when she casually said, "By the way, the girls and I are planning a weekend in Vegas. You know, one last wild trip before I'm officially off the market." I froze. One last wild trip? She laughed at my expression. "Don't be so serious. It's just a tradition. Bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, everyone does it. It's harmless fun," I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her how much it bothered me, how the phrase itself felt like a crack in the foundation we had built. But she brushed it off so easily, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "You trust me, right?" Of course I trusted her. I had to. If you don't trust the person you're about to marry, what do you have? So I smiled, nodded, and said, "Yeah. Have fun." That night, lying in bed while she scrolled through her phone, I tried to shake the unease. I told myself it was normal, that I was overthinking. I remembered all the good moments, the late night drives, the inside jokes, the promises we made under the stars. I reminded myself of the woman who once looked at me like I was the only person in the world. But in the pit of my stomach, Something told me this wasn't harmless. Something told me the life I thought I had wasn't as stable as I believed. I pushed that thought down, convincing myself I was being paranoid. After all, love requires trust. And I loved her. So I let her go. I kissed her goodbye at the door, told her to be safe, and watched her car disappear down the street. I didn't know it yet, but that trip to Vegas wasn't just a weekend with friends. It was the moment that would expose everything I had ignored. And the cruelest part? She didn't even realize I had the key to uncover it all, sitting quietly in my pocket. The night she left for Vegas, I told myself not to check the location. I promised myself I wouldn't be that guy. The paranoid fiancé, glued to his phone, waiting for proof that didn't exist. But promises are easy to make when you're calm. They're harder to keep when your gut won't stop twisting. At first, everything seemed fine. She texted me when she landed. "Love you. Talk later." I stared at the 3 little dots that suggested she was still typing, but then they disappeared. Nothing else came through. I waited. An hour passed, then 2. By midnight, my phone was still silent. I tried to distract myself, flipping through channels, pouring a drink, even starting a video game. But no matter what I did, my mind drifted back to her. What was she doing? Who was she with? Why hadn't she called? That's when my phone buzzed, not with a text, but with a notification I had almost forgotten about. Months earlier, when she was traveling late at night, we had shared our phone locations just in case. It had become habit, something I never thought twice about. Until that night. I stared at the glowing blue dot on the map. At first, it didn't alarm me. It was at the hotel she told me about. Fine, normal. But an hour later, the dot moved. It jumped across the strip, landing at a club I recognized instantly. One of those places known for excess. The kind that never makes it into polite conversation. I told myself it was harmless. Just dancing. Just friends having fun. But then the dot moved again. Another club. Then a strip bar. Then a casino at 3 a.m. And with each refresh, my chest tightened. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I wanted to. But something told me to stay quiet. Instead, I opened my laptop and began screenshotting the map. Every stop. Every timestamp. One by one, I documented her night like I was building a case. I didn't know why I was doing it, only that some part of me needed the record. The next morning, I woke up groggy, the phone still in my hand. The blue dot was at a luxury hotel I hadn't heard her mention before. I zoomed in, my stomach dropping. It wasn't her hotel. It was a completely different place, known for its penthouse suites. The dot stayed there all morning. By noon, I still hadn't heard from her. Not a call, not a text, not even a photo of the girls having fun. But when I checked Instagram, her best friend had posted a story, a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking, tagged at the very same hotel. Except only 3 glasses were visible, and Emma wasn't in the frame. That's when the unease began to harden into something darker. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was observing, an investigator in my own life. The second night told the same story. Location pings at clubs, casinos, and finally, again, that same penthouse suite. Hours passed. The dot never moved. I lay in bed staring at the screen, my heart hammering, my breath shallow. The woman I had asked to be my wife was in another man's room, and she didn't even know I was watching her betray me in real time. Still, I stayed silent. Friends texted me casually, asking if I was excited for the wedding. Family called to check in about arrangements. I answered politely, calmly, like nothing was wrong. I didn't tell a soul. Not yet. Because I realized something important. If I confronted her too soon, she'd deny everything. She'd twist the truth, gaslight me, call me insecure. But if I waited, if I documented, if I let her dig her own grave, there would be no escape. By the third day, my phone was filled with screenshots. Each one was a tiny betrayal frozen in time. Clubs, hotels, restaurants, all places she had never mentioned. All places that told a story louder than any words. She finally texted me Sunday morning. "Hey babe, sorry. Crazy busy weekend. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I stared at the message, my hands trembling, my chest hollow. Crazy busy weekend. That's what she called it. As if the blue dot hadn't told me everything. As if her silence could erase the evidence. I didn't reply. Not right away. I sat in silence, the phone heavy in my palm, my mind replaying every moment of our relationship. The proposal, the wedding planning, the nights I believed she loved me. And now this. That night, I watched the dot return to the original hotel, the one she had told me about. By morning, it was at the airport. She was coming home. And as I sat there watching the dot inch closer, I realized something that made my entire body go cold. She had no idea I knew. She thought her weekend was a secret. She thought she'd walk through the door, smile, and carry on as if nothing had happened. That was her mistake. Because while she was laughing in Vegas, I was building a timeline. While she was raising champagne glasses, I was gathering proof. While she was betraying me, I was preparing for the moment she'd come back and walk straight into the quiet storm I was about to unleash. The unraveling wasn't just her lies, it was my silence. And silence, I realized, is the sharpest weapon of all. She landed Monday morning, smiling like she had just come back from a spa retreat. Her suitcase rolled behind her, her hair pulled into a neat bun, sunglasses perched on her head. She kissed me lightly and said, "God, I'm exhausted." "Vegas is insane," I smiled back. Not too wide, not too forced, just enough to play my part. She moved around the apartment casually, telling me stories about the girls, about shopping sprees, about late nights laughing in their hotel room. Every word out of her mouth was a lie, and I knew it. My phone, with its endless string of blue dot screenshots, had already told me the truth. I let her talk. I let her build her fiction, brick by brick, knowing the entire wall was about to collapse. The moment I knew for certain, the snap, didn't come from her stories. It came from the small details she forgot. She told me she had stayed at the Bellagio all weekend. My location history showed her at Caesar's Palace, at Omnia nightclub, at a penthouse suite on the 32nd floor of a hotel she never once mentioned. She told me they spent one night in, just drinking wine and watching movies. But the screenshot said otherwise. She'd been pinged at Sapphire Gentlemen's Club until 3 in the morning. Then, without thinking, she slipped. She said, "I can't believe how crazy the view from our balcony was." Balcony, the hotel she claimed she stayed at? No balconies? That's when it hit me fully. Not just suspicion, not just fear, but certainty. She wasn't just lying. She had crafted an entire parallel story, confident I'd never question it, confident I'd believe her no matter what. And that's when something inside me broke. Or maybe it didn't break. Maybe it hardened. My chest went cold. My hands stopped shaking. I looked at her, still smiling, still spinning her stories, and I realized I wasn't hurt anymore. I was done. I didn't confront her that second. I didn't scream or throw my phone on the table. I just nodded, asked a few casual questions, and tucked away her answers like more evidence. She had no idea that every word, every excuse, every slip was confirming the truth I already had. That night, while she slept peacefully beside me, I opened my laptop and spread the screenshots across the screen. Club names, hotel locations, timestamps, the entire Vegas itinerary laid out like a map of betrayal. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even feel the urge to wake her and shove the proof in her face. I just stared at the evidence until the sun rose, my mind clear and steady. That was the moment I snapped, not into chaos, but into control. She thought she had fooled me. She thought I was still the trusting fiancé, the dependable guy who would swallow his doubts and keep the peace. But she had underestimated me. She had underestimated silence. Because silence doesn't mean weakness. Silence means you're listening. Silence means you're gathering. Silence means when the time comes, you won't just have words. You'll have proof. By morning, my decision was made. I wouldn't marry her. I wouldn't even give her the dignity of a private confrontation. No. This betrayal deserved light. It deserved exposure. And I would make sure everyone who thought we were the perfect couple saw the truth for themselves. She wanted one last wild weekend. She had no idea it would be her last with me. The morning after I made my decision, I looked at her differently. She was still the same woman, laughing at her phone, sipping her coffee, humming along to a playlist. But in my mind, she was already a stranger. A stranger who had no idea I'd seen everything, who didn't realize she'd already lost me. That gave me power. I didn't storm out or call off the wedding on the spot. No, that would have been too easy for her. She would have spun the story, painted me as insecure, as paranoid, as controlling. She was good with words, but words mean nothing against proof. And I had proof, more than enough to bury her lies forever. So I began to plan. Step 1 was securing the evidence. I spent hours compiling everything into folders on my computer, screenshots of her location pings, the map timelines, Instagram stories from her friends, bank charges from Vegas that didn't match her version of events. Each piece was labeled, organized, backed up on a hard drive, and in the cloud. She could delete her texts, spin her stories, even deny what she'd done, but the timeline I'd built couldn't be erased. Step 2 was making sure I wouldn't get caught in her financial mess. Weddings aren't cheap, and I had already sunk thousands into deposits. Quietly, I called vendors. I canceled contracts where I could and redirected deposits to gift cards or credits in my name. The tuck shop? Canceled. The catering? Rescheduled under a false event name so I wouldn't lose the deposit. Even the honeymoon trip, fully refundable, as long as she never knew I'd already called. She thought she was walking toward a wedding. In reality, the wedding had already unraveled, and I was the only one who knew. I also called my lawyer, not to sue her, but to understand how to protect myself. We talked about the engagement ring, about shared accounts, about what would happen if she tried to claim anything as compensation. The lawyer's advice was simple. Stay calm, keep your records, and if you call it off, make sure you do it with witnesses. That word stuck with me. Witnesses. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about ending an engagement. It was about truth. About letting the people who thought we were the perfect couple see who she really was. She had humiliated me quietly, behind my back. I was going to expose her, calmly, in front of everyone. So I set the stage. We had a family engagement dinner planned, both families, close friends, all gathered in one room to celebrate the countdown to the wedding. She was excited, buzzing about it for days. I encouraged her, smiled, nodded, even helped her pick out a dress. She had no idea that what she thought would be her celebration was about to become her exposure. In the days leading up to it, I stayed the perfect fiancé. I asked about flower arrangements, complimented her choices, even sat through an hour-long debate about napkin colors. The more I leaned into the role, the less she suspected. She laughed, kissed me, called me the best guy in the world. I almost pitied her. Almost. On the night of the dinner, I walked in carrying my phone and a small flash drive. The restaurant had agreed to let us use the projector screen for a slideshow she had planned. Pictures of us, our engagement photos, vacation shots. She thought it would be the highlight of the evening. And it was, just not in the way she imagined. I loaded the flash drive while she mingled, watching her laugh with her friends, completely oblivious. My heart should have been pounding, but it wasn't. I was calm, colder than I'd ever been. Months of silence, of collecting proof, had prepared me for this moment. When the time came, she tapped her glass and thanked everyone for coming. She talked about love, about trust, about how excited she was to spend forever with me. I smiled, raised my glass, and when she sat down, I stood. Before we get to the slideshow, I said, I want to show everyone something else. The room quieted. I connected my phone to the projector. The screen lit up with the first screenshot. A map of Las Vegas, the little blue dot pulsing at a nightclub at 2 a.m. Confused murmurs rippled across the room. I clicked again. Another screenshot. Her dot moving across the strip, arriving at a hotel she hadn't mentioned. Then another and another. Club after club. Hotel after hotel. Finally, the pin sitting in a penthouse suite for hours. The silence was deafening. Her face went pale. She stammered, Jason, what is this? This isn't... I didn't let her finish. This, I said evenly, is your Vegas weekend. Your exact itinerary. Every place you went. Every lie you told. You forgot your location was shared with me. Gasps filled the room. Her parents looked horrified. My family sat frozen, eyes wide. Friends exchanged glances, jaws dropping. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply scrolled through the proof. Each screenshot another nail in the coffin of her story. By the time I was done, the picture was undeniable. Finally, I looked her in the eyes and said, You wanted one last wild weekend. You got it, but you won't get a wedding. I put the remote down, thanked everyone for coming, and walked out. No scene, no drama, just truth. Behind me, I could hear her voice cracking, trying to explain, trying to spin it. But no one was listening anymore. The evidence was louder than her excuses. As I stepped into the cool night air, I felt lighter than I had in months. The plan had worked. The silence had paid off. And the future I thought I wanted, with her, was finally behind me. When I left the restaurant that night, the air outside felt colder, sharper, almost electric. Behind me, the voices rose in confusion, her family demanding answers, my family sitting in stunned silence, her friends whispering frantically. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The truth was already out, and there was no putting it back in the box. But the fallout wasn't just that one dinner. It was everything that followed. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. Emma tried first. Long messages, some pleading, some furious. It's not what you think. You're humiliating me for nothing. Please just hear me out. And then, the shift. You'll regret this. You'll never find someone like me. I didn't answer. Not one word. Silence had been my weapon, and it stayed that way. Then came her parents. They wanted a meeting, a chance to clear the air. I agreed calmly, but I didn't go alone. I brought the flash drive. We sat in their living room while Emma sat across from me, her eyes red but defiant. Her father demanded to know what happened. Without a word, I plugged the drive into their TV. The screenshots lit up the screen again. Map pins, clubs, hotels, timestamps, each one a silent witness. Her father's face fell. Her mother gasped. Emma tried to speak, but every word was drowned by the evidence. By the time it was over, there was no argument left to make. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing, while her parents sat in silence. I stood, thanked them for their time, and walked out. The wedding was officially off within 48 hours. Vendors called to confirm cancellations, deposits refunded or transferred. Friends texted me in shock, some saying they'd heard pieces of the story, others admitting they had always had doubts about her. The truth spread faster than I expected, not because I broadcast it, but because people talk. People always talk. And once her lies were exposed, the whispers turned into wildfire. Emma tried to spin the story. She told mutual friends that I was controlling, that I had tracked her unfairly, that I had humiliated her for no reason. But the screenshot spoke louder than her excuses. You can't argue with timestamps. You can't argue with GPS history. And the more she tried to twist the truth, the more desperate she looked. For me, the days that followed were strangely peaceful. I went back to work, explained briefly to a few close colleagues what had happened, and left it at that. I didn't need to rant. I didn't need revenge beyond what had already been done. My silence, my patience, my proof, that was enough. The best moment came 2 weeks later when a mutual friend reached out. Jason, she said, you should know. Everyone's talking about what you did at that dinner. People are calling it legendary. I never wanted to be a legend. I just wanted the truth. But if exposing betrayal with cold clarity earned me that title, I wasn't going to argue. Emma moved out quietly. She packed her things while I was at work, leaving the ring behind on the counter. I picked it up that evening, turned it over in my hand, and felt nothing. No anger, no regret, just relief. I thought about how close I had come to marrying her, how close I had been to tying myself legally and emotionally to someone who had no respect for loyalty, for trust, for me. The thought made me shudder, not because I had lost her, but because I had almost lost myself. What she didn't understand, what she never understood, was that betrayal doesn't just hurt in the moment. It changes you. It teaches you what kind of person you are when the floor falls out beneath you. And I had learned that I wasn't weak. I wasn't blind. I wasn't replaceable. I was patient. I was calculated. And when the time came, I was merciless in my silence. People asked me later if I regretted doing it in front of everyone. If maybe I should have handled it privately, spared her the embarrassment. My answer was simple. She didn't spare me. She humiliated me in the loudest city in the world, thinking I'd never find out. Why should I protect her image when she destroyed mine? The fall wasn't about anger. It wasn't about screaming or throwing things. It was about truth. And when the truth came out, it didn't need volume. It needed clarity. That clarity had cost me an engagement, yes, but it had saved me a marriage. In the weeks after the engagement dinner, my life felt strangely quiet. No more late-night arguments. No more forced smiles during wedding planning. No more gut-deep anxiety wondering if I was enough. The noise was gone, and in its place came something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Emma moved out of my apartment quickly, leaving behind a few forgotten items and the engagement ring sitting cold on the counter. I held it once, turned it in my palm, and felt nothing. Not anger, not grief. Just a strange kind of gratitude that I had discovered the truth before I signed papers that would have bound me to her forever. Friends reached out, some shocked, some supportive, some saying they'd always had a feeling about her. My family, once so excited about the wedding, wrapped me in support. They told me I'd handled it with more composure than most could have managed, and maybe they were right. But I hadn't felt composed in the moment. I just felt calm, like exposing the truth was the only option left. At work, whispers spread. A few colleagues who'd been invited to the engagement dinner shared the story. The details traveled fast, and before long, people I barely knew were patting me on the back, saying things like, "Man, that was brutal, but legendary." I never set out to be legendary. I just refused to live a lie. The biggest change, though, was internal. For so long, I had built my identity around being dependable, steady, trusting. I thought those qualities were enough to guarantee loyalty in return. They weren't. What I learned is that trust is only powerful when it's given to someone worthy of it. And Emma wasn't worthy. Do I regret the relationship? Number. It taught me patience. It taught me discipline. It taught me that silence, when used with precision, is more powerful than any argument. And most importantly, it taught me that betrayal doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. Now, months later, I live differently. I take time for myself. I don't second-guess my instincts anymore. I pay attention to red flags, no matter how small. And I don't hand my loyalty to someone just because they ask for it. They have to earn it, the way my clients trust me at work, the way my closest friends do. The wedding never happened. The life I thought I was building collapsed. But what I got instead was better. Freedom. Clarity. A chance to start over without being tied to someone who never truly valued me. And here's the lesson I'll leave you with. Betrayal hurts, but it also reveals. It shows you the truth you've been avoiding, the cracks you didn't want to see. It forces you to grow. It forces you to realize that the worst day of your life might just be the day that saves you. Emma wanted one last wild weekend. She got it. But what she didn't realize is that it cost her everything. And me, I walked away with my dignity intact, my future still wide open, and the peace of knowing I chose truth over illusion. So if you've ever been lied to, underestimated, or made to feel like you're not enough, remember this: you are worth the truth. Don't settle for less. Don't ignore the signs. And don't be afraid to walk away when the mask comes off. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting to hold on. It's having the strength to let go. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever trusted your gut and uncovered the truth, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share your own story in the comments. Let's remind the world that no matter how loud the lies are, the truth always wins.